Welcome everyone. I'll take apologies, noting that we know that Councillor Finch is coming back in 1 minute's time, so I'll just consider she's here. Is everyone else everyone here? So no apologies. Is there any late items or urgent business that people wish to bring to the table? Any declarations of interest? If there isn't, can we please move to agenda item number 1, which is incredibly small writing. So did everyone get a bigger sheet? Sharon, do you have anything you wish to add?
To you, Your Worship. No, I just put this report in here. There was a replacement report sent out later that Donna had yet. You guys should have got on Friday, I believe. And it is showing the projects that staff have identified as potentially category A for your approval. And there's also another 2 lists with nice lines on them, making it easier to read.
Looks like
Sharers, can we get that one?
Bunch of that. And there's also, there's 2 more project lists come out. One with lines to make it easy to read, and one for just the 3 years. For you to consider if there was anything you wish to have added or deleted. Jules may have something to add to that.
I was just going to answer any questions.
Okay, team. My apologies, I didn't get this bit of paper, so while I'm quickly scrambling to read it, although it's pretty much just the lines that I'm sure we've all looked through, does anyone have any questions before we head into discussion? If not, discussion team, what's the thoughts of everyone of the list that we've got?
Are they in order of preference?
No, there's no order.
No preference, okay.
Councillor Kennedy, followed by Tony.
I just had a question re the Milton Community Pool Library Hub project. It's got ongoing and it's got special consultation process now required. What was that? I can't remember.
Yeah. So that's in fact it's coming to you.
Oh,
It is coming to you in the next council meeting, but it was always the next step which was identified in the LTP that we said we couldn't make decisions in the LTP. It was going to be needing because of the increased costs goes to a special consultative procedure.
okay.
So it's still
I just
picking up
thought
there.
it wasn't going back out to the public again.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Right. So they will still be the
Yes, and
cracker.
it's for the process and potentially the project if it carries on, but it could also be the end of the project.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted Michelle.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. The Milton to Waihola pipeline, currently commissioning phase. Where are we at with that? And what's going to happen when it is got water going through? Because we're told the treatment plants, you can't mix the water. So are all the tanks being emptied to go to the new water, or what's happening there?
So through you, Your Worship, you can mix water. At the end of the day, it's on a boil water notice. So, but it's going to take time to flush through the North Bruce water once the Milton water is going through. Now, the water has been flowing through the pipeline as of last week. They're still doing testing and verifying the chlorination system and those sorts of things as well. So I have to get an update from Denver, but we could be very, very soon the water will be going through. But we're not going to announce that or anything because we want to make sure that we're in a place to lift the boil water notice before we do those sorts of announcements. So
Yeah.
I'll have a chat with Denver and get an update on that. But the water was going through and coming out in Waihola as of last week.
Right.
And
So now you can mix 2 steps.
You don't normally do it, but all we're really doing is stopping the flow from North Bruce and starting the flow from Milton. But because it's on a boil water notice, it's going to be a better source that's coming from Milton than what it's getting from North Bruce. So the initial connection is only for we're not continuing on with the North Bruce customers. That's for the reservoir for Waihola. Is the initial one, and then we'll look at rest of it once that's up and running, because that's our key, our first priority.
And we didn't consider that it would be a Cat A project because it's near to completion as opposed to looking at it over the whole year.
So one that I wondered if we could consider was, because I was trying to think for a category A project, the ones that have got a lot of community interest in them, people and that. And the one category that I see that's missing from the lines that I have is our housing stock, the community housing, what we're doing, be it maintaining what we've got or doing any of the, it's happening and it's ongoing. We're certainly maintaining them all. We're considering that it's not on our list. I just wonder whether people thought that it should or shouldn't.
When I've noted, when I've done my own list.
Well, I mean, I think the way we were looking at it, Your Worship, was that, the maintenance and the spend on that side of things is just operations. There are papers coming to you at some point around where we are going with certain things. But the Cat A projects is more about keeping an eye on projects, and the difficulty is what project are we actually talking about, or that relates to that. It may be projects might come out of your decisions, and you can always add things in at another time. But as of today, we didn't necessarily think that there was projects that leapt out.
That was the only one that I saw that I had a line through, was the housing projects, housing issues. I agree, we haven't got a project, so just as long as everyone's comfortable signing.
No, they probably do. Yeah, I was just going to say it's very important, but I see these projects as the ones that have potential risks or pitfalls, and community housing at the moment probably doesn't.
I could see it. Nor did Taylor Park Huts. There's only 4 of them. That was the reason why I thought that was sensitivity. But Councillor Kendi.
The other question probably for Jules, the manganese and the Milton urban water.
Yep.
That we're going to pump up the thing, so we've got a big spend there coming up to reduce that. Is that in the water or is that piping?
Again, for you, Your Worship, it's a combination. It's at a low level in the water, but what we suspect has been happening, it's been building up in the pipework over time. So we've already commissioned a report to look at what we can do for our options for Milton manganese, and that's supposed to be looking at increasing the capacity of the Milton plant as well. So that'll once we've got the scope of that project, it'll be coming back down to confirm this is where we're heading. So, but yeah, we've had 2 episodes where we've had a month or longer of dirty water in Milton, and it's to try and make sure we do the background work to avoid that happening again.
Because we don't want our new water system to end up on board water notice.
We don't. Manganese doesn't necessarily put you on a board water notice, but it's still not great at all, and that's why we want to get to the bottom of it. The amounts in the water are very, very low. They're below what like the drinking water standards. But the problem is we think that is accumulating in the pipes, so we want to remove that from the water to stop that issue happening, like we had previously.
Thank you.
Councillor Volwell.
Yeah, I wondered about including Milton water supply as a category A project at some stage anyway. Like the manganese is just one thing. We're also looking at taking greater volume of water as well, and I think there are risks from that, getting consents to do so, and possibly there was mention of moving the intake of the water treatment plant down to where the 2 branches of the river join and such like. So, and I think that perhaps we're not far advanced enough in those decision making here yet to have that as a major project. But I think it has the potential to be one. It's a whole combination of issues relating to Milton water supply, and I'm still like the idea of investigating getting better water from another source for Milton, and I see possibility that there's $3 million spend for Kaitangata, just to put in intakes, screens or intakes there as well, and where there's a combination there that could be done of a new water source for more than just Kaitangata or Milton, which would improve the source water quality there.
Yep, through you also, Your Worship, we actually have two strategic water projects looking at sort of Balclutha South, which includes the Richardson South and Richardson North scheme. And we also have one looking at Kaitangata, Stirling and Balclutha as well. So once we get the results of those, we could look at, well, what might that mean if we look to extend that further north? So there could be a next stage of that strategic water assessment that we're doing. So once we get those results back, we can bring that back to council for discussion about that next stage.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, through Your Worship, just Jules, where is that visible to the councillors? Where do the councillors see those two strategic sort of bits of work that we're talking about?
I think we've discussed it previously as the precursors before there are a couple of projects that they directly relate to. Kaitangata intake is one of them. And the discussion was, why would we spend $3 million on an intake at Kaitangata until we've looked at, are we better to have a bigger treatment plant in Stirling and pipe it to that? If the Kaitangata plant needs to be replaced in 5 years' time, what's the optimum for that? So it's part of the scoping of that project. Exactly the same thing for the south area, which we have discussed with councillors previously. We've got money in there to replace the Purua plant. But before we do that, we need to look at what's the optimum way to do that. Should it be increasing this capacity at Whiteley Road? Is it a bigger plant for Balclutha? So the sort of scoping works of those really big capital projects that need to be ticked off while we confirm what we're going to do. So visibility was the precursors to knowing what we're going to do on those projects.
Just checking, Tim, before we move on. Julie brought in
That's the
bigger font, if anyone wants big font ones. Anyone want them?
Yeah, I will.
So, Bruce.
Yeah, I just think rather than looking at all these little these projects as being individual items, I think, as George says, is the opportunity to consider them as an overall overarching situation there anyway, just to make sure that we don't just sort of do little pieces of work which sort of we're tied into for the next 50 years or whatsoever, whereas one big project could be a solution for a much longer term.
So Your Worship, I mean, the Cat A projects is based on existing projects or projects we're about to start, and the Rural Urban Water Scheme funding policy, for example, is it's not on your list of projects there, but it's one that we're proposing that we think is really important to start, and it's of a level that should be sitting at a Cat A side of things. Councillor Bowie, if the suggestion is that we think we should be creating a strategic project that grips up some of those precursor things that Jules has been talking about and other matters, that's easy to do for us to create a project for that, so that pulls things. And I actually agree. Listening to the fact that it's a precursor, it's still not necessarily visible to us at all, and it's probably something that we should be looking at. And so creating a project to pick up that strategic side of things, I think we can easily do. The question would be, having created the project, which means that it has, it can have elected member input and involvement. Because of that, depends how we create the project, we can do that. It doesn't need to be a Cat A listed project. That's the only thing.
I think possibly it's just early enough. It doesn't need to go on the list yet. I guess it depends how quickly these are going to work through these. I mean, sort of had signals there. I mean, the Kaitangata is mentioned in our infrastructure reports, also the possibility of the Stirling merging.
Could I suggest, just to deal with it, could I suggest that maybe staff put together the first report
Yeah.
on the subject, which is just gripping everything that we're aware of in relation to that. And there might be some directions that you could give as councillors once you receive that report. But that'll get the thing into play, and then we can go from there. That would be.
And then work out whether it's a project
Yes.
that's elevated. You happy with that?
No, that's fine.
Okay, Tim, just to move things along, you see the list there, it's also got that bottom one, other projects as amended. Are there any others that we're going to add to it as amended, or are we going to run with the category A's as listed there from A to H? If there are no additions to it, is someone happy to move recommendation 1 and recommendation 2 A to H? You happy, Ellie?
Yeah, I'm happy
So
with
councillor Ludeman's moving recommendation 1 and recommendation 2 as listed, seconded by councillor Graham. Any discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. Just the confirmation of the minutes on page 16. I'll move, someone happy to second them? Councillor Payne, is there any discussion on it? All those in favour? Those against. Health and safety, is Christina here?
No, she's ill, Your Worship, so we can, from our perspective, we're happy to take the report as read, and there's a group of us that can answer questions if there's any questions arising.
Councillor Kennedy,
Just,
followed by Graham.
a question regarding, bullet point 3. Mental health safety, is that included in health? Or is it something else that we need to add in?
Bullet point 3, what sort of paragraph are we talking about?
So you've got ongoing policy reviews and
Page
developments.
24.
Oh, yes.
So do we actually have something in place, or is it an area we need to look at?
About mental health,
Is it in
not
our-
specifically, we don't have a specific policy on.
Is it in our health? And
There is the general well-being references in our various policies.
so
Psychological safety and referencing to various policies. Nothing's specific or separate, nothing separate on mental well-being, mental health.
is it something that we should be looking at?
Yeah.
Today's age? Was this the question that went through my own head?
I think it's a question that can easily be pushed to the review, because they're going to be reviewed.
Yeah.
So, we can make the note that where does that sit if it sits.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Graham, followed by Phelps.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The physical assault on a staff member, firstly, is the staff member all right? And secondly, where did it occur? Was it a certain, obviously certain parts of the organisation are sort of more likely to be assaulted, or where is it out on site, or is it building inspector, or dog control?
So through your wish, I'm fairly sure that this was just concluding what had been previously reported. So it has been on previous reports, and it is in an area of activity that isn't dog control building, and that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's the Freedom Camping area.
Councillor Phelps, followed by South.
Just through the chair, I've just got two things. Point number 2, the 3 waters, the gantry assessment, is that like a gantry crane or just a, do we know?
Sorry, again, what was the reference?
On bullet point 2, 3 waters, it's got there are only 2 remaining related to gantry assessments and location compliance certificate. The only reason I asked that is because we've got a gantry crane at work and we've actually got to be certified to use it if it's a gantry crane, but is it just a gantry to use for whatever?
Anybody, team to
I
help?
suspect it's three waters because we've got a number of gantries at pump stations. So yeah, if they're part of the building, they don't normally need certification, but if they're standalone little beam, then they do need that.
They're not actually a crane as such.
No.
And thank you. Just following on from Councillor Graham's comment of the Sullivan staff member, was there mention, I think by Christine at some stage, that they're going to be some staff wearing GoPros, but to help this or?
Through your worship, my understanding is that there is investigation still going on about that at the Health and Safety Committee level around how that might occur. So these incidents obviously get investigated. You look at it and say the suggestion is that maybe camera would have alleviated the issue or it might have exacerbated the issue, but it's part of the investigation. I know that I haven't yet approved rollout of cameras for staff. I know it's topical and it's being looked at now.
Right. Thank you.
My question just on page 27 with the risk dashboard number 2, failure to manage response to and the impacts of central government reform, and we've got the mood as all steady. I can't express the game changer of last week, and we were in Wellington for 4 days. All the councils could not see how to respond to central government's initiative. Does the movement the arrow need to go up? I know it's semantics, but I'm just once again trying to stress the point that the world changed last Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes, Your Worship, we would have to have a new colour code for something worse than what we've currently got.
Yeah, well,
it's at that highest level now.
Well, therefore the arrows are relevant when it gets there, but if there are degrees of criticality, then because no one had an answer to anything for it, but it is, how do we stress that it's gotten a whole lot worse? Because it has. Councillor Boyle.
I would suggest that at the moment, the government's certainly using some tough language until we actually know what they're proposing, what their bill or whatever it is they're going to put forward regulations affecting local government. We can't make any response. We're dealing with a lot of issues now anyway with the changes the government's making. Saying they're going to go through our books line by line for us, but until they actually put that in legislation or have a team in place to do that, we don't know how it's going to pan out. So
Councillor Pine.
Thank you, Worship. Look, mine was, sorry, I'm just going back to the risk dashboard. I mean, I looked at this and I thought, as soon as I looked at it, I thought at the very best here, we're flatlining. We're flatlining. Everyone's just, there's no change. And I mean, I don't know, am I reading it wrong? I would have liked to see, you talk about the arrows going up, I'd like to see some going down as well. I mean, to me, I don't know whether we're getting anywhere, that's where I'm sitting. Sitting here thinking, what's happening? We're just ticking along.
We do report on. So this is just the dashboard that gives the status, right?
Yeah.
We do report on the individual risks, and when you look at the individual reports, there's supposed to be, what are the mitigation measures and other bits and pieces, and that's the bit where you can, query are the actions occurring or are they not occurring.
Yeah. So I get that, but if we're making progress, wouldn't an arrow all of a sudden tip the other way?
That's right. I wouldn't describe it as flatlining and say, obviously, it's stable. You are correct in wanting to reduce things.
Yeah.
The problem is if you take public health and resource consent breaches, the plans are in place to improve the situation and reduce the risk, but we are still breaching consent conditions, and some of the consents are onerous in the sense that we're always going to breach conditions. So when you look at that the total picture of that, it's very hard to say, hey, we'll reduce that risk from what it currently is at this time. But it's not to say that a lot of work, when you see the compliance reports, a lot of work's being done to do it. But we've also got to be transparent and honest, can't we? And say, at this point, it's still sitting in the red until we can demonstrate, much better record in respect of that. And as His Worship said, that number 2 one, well, that's just gone through the roof. And some of those things are, if you look at it where we have an input and we mitigate, we'd like a little mitigation around that particular subject. So it may be that we're not going to be able to reduce that.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit more relaxed about that table. I mean, there's 14 key risks there, and as I see it, most of them are always going to be there. It only takes one thing to go badly wrong, and one of them blows out. At any time in the future, they'll essentially be the same in 10 years' time. They're always going to be there, and it just gives us an indication of where things could go wrong.
Okay, team, we've exhausted discussion on this. We've got recommendation somewhere. Back on page 23, you happy to move, Councillor Kennedy? We received the report, seconded by someone. Councillor Graham, any discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Those against, thank you. Over to Mount Kelly. Jason?
Yep.
We can, welcome.
Turn it up a wee bit.
Yes, so present to the members is a report on the risk of Mercury getting filled before the new consent is achieved, or if we don't achieve the consent. I'd like to present the report as being accepted, and if there's any questions, I would put to answer them for you.
Thank you, Jason. Questions, please, Councillor Kennedy.
My question, Jason, is why do these consents take so long? And it's like we get held over a barrel every time for length of consents, and they take so long to do. And my other question is, I see you have here in item number 4 about communication to our communities and stakeholders. When is that going to be done?
Through the chair, in terms of the consent application process, I've not been on creep for long enough to articulate how long or why this has taken as long as it should have done. From the communication perspective, this is a project that is run through our projects team. I understand there's communication still outstanding with the local iwi, maybe potentially some of the local people are in there. My understanding is, but I may be incorrect, Jules might be able to add on this, that process is currently ongoing, or it's just about to. Jules, can you add anything in terms of the consent time or?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So the recent, and Cosmos is here, might be able to add some further information too, but we do have finally got an indication from the Regional Council that with some affected parties discussions with a handful of local residents, which I understand there was already some communication, but not the formal approval, and with the other key stakeholders like iwi and is it Dock and Fishing Game? I think with those, it won't be, it's proposed to not be publicly notified for a new consent, which is quite a big deal, but we still need to work through those issues with those parties to get that over the line. So that's been initiated with our consultants to get that going. We need to do the discussion with iwi and with some of those other parties, but we can get the local stuff going. So the main sticking point is around the length of consent. We originally applied for 35 years. What came back was 15, but there's a big cost to go through the consenting process. So we want to have some further discussions around that and see where we can land. But that's one of the key sticking points. In terms of the length of time, certainly it's taken longer than we would have expected. The feedback is Jerry was managing this project for us previously. every time we got partway there was seemed to be backwards and forwards between the ORC's consultants and our consultants. That's taken a lot longer than we would have expected. But yeah, we've asked for a risk report from WSP in terms of the likely timeframes. But at this stage, I think if we can get those approvals, they were expecting to have a new consent granted by December, was what they had indicated initially, but we're waiting for them to do a formal report back on that, and we'll distribute that through the normal channels when we get that.
So, Jules or Jason, like, this is our biggest single asset. And as I read this, because I had it's not like we haven't got our problems, so I wasn't going looking for any. So I had Mount Kiwi tucked away in the back of my head that, yeah, there's an overarching problem. I sort of had in my head 2027. We got it under control. And yet now there's the genuine risk that time is going to mean that there could be a period where, if ORC wanted to get a bit gory on this, we could be looking at transporting rubbish to somewhere else, doing that exposure to for our council to be exposed to that. How did that happen? We should have seen that coming and had this consent done. And I know that it's all good and fine to point fingers on that, but that's one hell of an exposure. The public's going to be more than peeved off. And we went right through the long-term plan. I don't know, we seem to have analysed everything till the cows come home, and we missed our biggest single assets exposure to risk. How did that happen?
I mean, we've been working on this for several years. The key, I don't think the ORC are trying to hold this up. The ORC want to get this granted and out the door. We're just trying to make sure that we're getting the best outcome for our community, because if we go for a 15-year consent, then we've got all this cost again in the short term. So, I think the thing that Jason also pointed out is that the current capacity was a self-imposed capacity, and that's why there's options that have been mentioned in the report to extend that out by potentially up to another year from what we had. And that work is underway as well, which is some geotech testing. We've got a confirmed design from 2 landfill engineers to do that, so that'll give us a little bit more breathing space to avoid that issue happening as well. So.
When I read it, Jules, it was sort of like, yeah, it was a self-imposed, but we did a pretty good guess sort of thing. We went too far off the mark, and while there might be a wee bit of latitude, for me, my main concern was, how do we get to this point? Why don't we start 3 years earlier or whatever? Because right at the moment, to push our biggest asset and have the risk of shipping rubbish out, it's just a dilemma we don't need.
There is one other thing I think needs to be highlighted and we did discuss this during the long-term plan process, is there is a decision to be made about whether Mount Kiwi continues to operate. Mm-hmm. And that is a financial decision based on the projected change in volumes for when we actually increase our recycling. So and Jason doesn't quite agree with me here, but if we are successful in reducing our curbside collection by 50%, we've got to look at the economics of Mount Kiwi, and that decision has to be made before any new cell is built. So that's really a key bit of work that has to be done. The other thing that we do have the potential to, and I definitely have to discuss this with Jason, and it will be coming back to council in due course, is looking at the operating model for Mount Kiwi going forward. Whether contracting out is the best way to do it, or whether we should look at other options, and that needs to be part of at least a part of a 17A review process, which we're required to do before a contract like that goes out.
Sorry, Your Worship, just again for Jules, potentially not for Jason because he wasn't here, but my understanding was also that we went through a period of Mount Kiwi sucking up a lot of capacity that hadn't been forecasted. Remember, we had the construction materials period, which there was just feeding material into Mount Kiwi at the time. And the only question might be is, at what point did we start looking at forecasting the consequences of that? Because I'm fairly confident that that new figure of August 25 was not the original forecasted figure for getting to the expiry as we were working our way through the process. But you sort of go, well, what difference would it have made knowing it earlier, other than telling you, because the end result was the consent could only be submitted when the work was done to complete the consent application to the standard if necessary. So, you know, the work was still the work. They weren't twiddling their thumbs on.
And there is ongoing pressure to continue to accept that sort of refuse, which we've said we can't at the moment.
Councillor McTamaney.
Jason, there's a number in there about transferring waste to third-party landfills, a range between 500,000 to 750,000. For how long a period, you know, what does that mean? Is that, how long a period does that amount of dollars cover?
That's per annum.
For how long?
Per annum. So
Per
for every
annum.
year that we would, so every year we would have, it would cost us anywhere, it's roughly about 500,000 for our own waste. And if we include trade waste, which is around 5,500 tonnes, it comes to 750,000. The majority of the cost is the shipping.
Yeah, and following
or the
on,
transport.
yeah, and following on from that, where would, if you're looking at those costs, where would that waste be transferred to?
The current model looks at every line.
Yeah, and they have the capacity to handle the coal. Yeah.
We've had discussions with them, and they've provided some information as well about costings and things like that for the current financial year.
Any further questions to Councillor Founds?
Just through the chair, I just want to, are we better to actually go for the 15-year consent just to secure and make things happen and deal with things later?
We
Or-
potentially could be, but but one of the issues is about sitting around the table and having another discussion about that. There have been discussions already with iwi and those other partners, but we really want to have another discussion around that because there are potential other options to go through a limited notification process for longer than the 15 years. But there is a risk with that.
Is that going to delay things?
Potentially, it depends on those discussions and where we get to with that limited notification process. So those are options that will be considered once we get the risk assessment back from our consultants.
So are you saying at the moment we could go for 15 at the moment?
Well, that's what's come back from our other partners. That's what they'd be accepting. From what I understand, is that correct? Yeah.
Thank you.
Just out of interest, if Dunedin took over the regional council, would that change our consenting process?
I would doubt it would, to be honest, because they've got a statutory process to go through in terms of the RNA. A lot of this work has been done by external consultants for the regional council, as well as for us.
I was being facetious, Joe, so just when Dunedin takes it over, I thought they might have just had a chit chat to us before they came up with the idea that.
I don't want to assume that, Your Worship.
Hell no. Right out, we got a recommendation back on page 29.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Bolwell, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Peter, did I see? I don't. Welcome, Peter. While you're making your way, I wonder if our Prime Minister could get a list of all the things that councils have a legal obligation, because there's more than roads, water and rubbish that we seem to be doing. What's yours?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the item as read with one exception, apologies, on recommendation 2B1, that should read update 2.
Right, 2B1.
Aye.
Done. Everyone got that in their heads? We want to whip that around. Has everyone got the change?
It's not removals, it's just updating it.
Done it. Questions for Peter? Can't let them off that light. Councillor Kennedy.
A silly request, Peter, but is there a chance you can send this document so that it's separate, so that, you know, when we go in the folder, we can sort of go, right, let's go straight to the mandatory documents. Because I sort of sat there and went through a few, you know, tapped on a few things and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, there's a lot more here than you actually realise. Yeah,
Indeed.
so, yeah, please, if you can.
Through your worship, we'll arrange that.
Any further questions, Tim? If not, matters open for discussion. I was actually amazed when you see, when you actually see the list of what in effect has been handed down to us to take care of. The same funding mechanisms that we had in 1898 or whatever it was. It's quite amazing. Questions, discussion? If not, it looks like you're getting off the hook very lightly, Peter, and someone's going to go straight at me with recommendations. All of them, Alec? All of them, so Councillor Lumen?
Well, I think so, yeah.
With that
With that
revised bit.
change, yeah.
Anyone prepared to second Councillor Ludeman's motion? Recommendation, Councillor Payne. Any discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Conflicts of interest register,
Page.
page 118. While everyone's getting to page 118, I know my conflicts. The Happy Youth Theatre Company now no longer exists, so that can come off there. Does anyone else have any additions or points they wish to raise, Councillor Ludeman?
Probably the Cross Recreation Centre. I'm actually a council appointed in that now rather than just on my own.
Righto,
So
so
that needs to go to a council appointment.
anyone else see a gap in the traffic? Oh, sorry, Councillor Herbert.
I'm on the consent liaison working party. Just wonder what that was.
Between the two of us, we should know. Consent liaison. Never heard of it.
I'm looking forward to that meeting.
I hope you've been doing a good job over the years. Does anyone know? Consent liaison. Got a
I think from memory, it was what the intention was, what we changed the wastewater working party to.
That's right,
Have a bit more liaison with other parties in advance rather than, to try and improve that engagement before we're asking for consents. So we haven't done that at this stage. We're still building that relationship.
The only slight concern I have is that it's not the full list of councillors. Has every councillor seen this, just in case there is an update? We're missing.
Through you, your worship, they get given through, it's corporate and policy, I think, isn't it? Each council will be given every 6 months a declaration to fill
So
out.
that they have
and,
seen.
and and delete things from, is that?
So we'll take it
And
that
community.
they'll do it that way. There's a recommendation on page 118, if there's no further discussion. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Finch. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. Sharon, risk and assurance, work plan.
Thank you, your worship. No, I'm just going to take this one as read, but just note that we will be talking insurance in committee of the whole this afternoon.
Not that we divulge what the subject is, but yeah. Questions, team? Councillor Valwela.
Sorry, I was just going to move that committee receives.
I'm pretty happy with that because it does seem to be straightforward. Does anyone have a biting question? If not, Councillor Valwela and seconded by Councillor Kennedy. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. Is Trey here or is Greg filling in? Or Sharon's filling in? Non-financial. Ooh, hold on. Financial.
Thank you, your worship. I'm pretty much going to take this one as read as well. This is just the accounts that come out when we push the button at the end of June. And since then, we've actually been working away. We are doing the annual report currently, and we started commencing audit on that on Monday. So we will be able to bring you something more final, but later. These are purely the cash transactions in and out for the year. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Questions to Sharon Tame? Councillor Volwell.
Actually, can I make a request just on the page 135, 136? We've got the, what do you call them? The ABC there, and then you have to flick over page 137 to see the notes. So that's sort of tricky going backwards and forwards. Where sometimes we get with the corporate report, they seem to have the notes on the same page as the statements.
Through your worship, we can certainly do that. That was a preference of the previous risk insurance chair to have it this way, and that's why they're different in the two. But we absolutely can do that.
Yeah, that works for other people. I would find that easier anyway.
Councillor Finch.
Thank you. Page 37, contributions relating to Milton Waihola pipeline have not yet been received. Do we know now when they will be received, seeing as there is water going through the pipe?
Through you, your worship. Jules, can you help, please?
So we had originally budgeted for some large commercial operators to connect, but because of the delay in timing they've made their own arrangements. So we won't be getting that, but what we will be looking at is encouraging other connections to recover some of that cost. So that's, once it's up and running, that'll be the next stage, because there was quite a few properties within Waihola and the surrounding area that we had advised couldn't connect, and they had made their own arrangements, but also planned to connect when that was available. So that's part of the next process, is to try and encourage connections and recover some of that cost. And we can still have discussions with some of those commercial operators, because they still might want a limited connection, but it may not be as much as they were looking at initially, because they've already made their own arrangements.
Councillor Gray.
Oh, yeah, through you. I just want to do a Councillor Volwheeler here on page 137. If Null has two L's.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I'm surprised you brought that up, Councillor Volwheeler.
I'm more disappointed than surprised. You know.
I suppose that drops you down in the numerical list of Bruce's on
No, it doesn't.
Right.
Sorry, I had another question on page 137. Dog registration fees are 24K behind the full year budget. That's a whole lot of dogs not registered. What's happening?
Through you, your worship, I'm not sure about the answer to that at this point. That'll be something we work through with the dog control team as part of the annual report.
Thank you.
It's actually not a high percentage of the budget.
No, but.
And the budget isn't, your worship, the budget isn't directly one-to-one connected to number of dogs. So it's a budgeted figure of revenue in that sense.
For me, the most critical part, Sharon and I had a talk about yesterday, was page 135. And I know Councillor Catherwood has often been concerned about how did the debt rise? We knew that this was happening, but how come the other rises? And it's from there, when you go from actual to budget, other way around, budget to actual, that deficit is the debt that rises up. So Sharon's been explaining how, but I think that we do as the governance arm have to critically look at it, because that's going to be eliminated. You can't have day-to-day operations funded by debt. So 2 years, was it, Sharon? And that's that 2 years that we went through the long-term plan saying that we're, to reduce the rates. But after that, it's one of those just absolutely do not do. So that's the importance of this one to me. Stop having the overrun swip into debt.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say that aside, I've got a recommendation.
So, I mean, it is we expected more questions from councillors on this. I mean, this is a big set of figures, and there's various areas there that can be questioned. I know there's the notes and other bits and pieces and things like that. Sharon's working to get the annual report done, which has to be done by next week. One of the aspects that we do have to do is identify what area how much of the deficit is to be capitalised for the Three Waters costs, because that was part of what our long-term plan side of it was. The rest of the deficit still has to come to you in the sort of the clean-up report, which you get every year, and we bring that to you so that we can look at it and say, well, okay, how we address this, reduce the deficit. We'd always said we were going to be deficit this year as we were last year, and we were relying on the LTP to clear deficits moving forward. And so this year, one of the things that is on Sharon's list of really important things is that we must be so much more tighter now to our budgets, because the budget should be correct, and that. So that's the expectation, so that we are really not in those same positions. But we will also still have to address through the annual plan, some of those deficit side of things that are non-water, and nobody wants to load those onto rates over 1 year, so you're going to have to look at how we're going to do that. But they will form part of the picture through the annual plan process too. So yes, it's a very important subject, Your Worship, and definitely warrants that highlight.
So I suppose Sharon and I talked through it. So are you picking it's about 1 million? I had 7.8 million Three Waters, 1 million from elsewhere. Where we are, just to get a quantum on it of because there is some paper deficit aspect in relation to depreciation and other bits and pieces. So maybe Sharon's got that idea.
Through you, Your Worship, it is true. Like, depreciation is not a cash thing, but we revalued everything last year. Well, our big things, our water and our roading, which made that go up. And the other thing is, some of that may be Three Waters, but it's not directly going to Three Waters yet. Some of that 1 million. Because there might be some positions that are funded in different parts of the council, but are specifically been put in to help with Three Waters, stuff like that. So we've got all that wash up to do for the year.
And then the other one was, is the Three Waters salary overspend of 2.77 million part of the 7.8, or is it additional? I couldn't work out from the figures.
It's part of the amount in the Three Waters operational 12-month report. So that was 7.8, wasn't it? Yes, so it is part of
that was 7.3.
But Your Worship, I might add that we've also identified outside the Three Waters direct, the additional staff that supported Three Waters, they created deficits in other accounts. And those deficits were identified at just under 600,000. So that adds on to the reason why, there's 4.7 million in employee benefits difference, which is a huge figure. And I was sure someone was going to ask me about.
But we took that, Steve, that's Crown Street. And now that Crown Street's been sorted out and there's been that weak calibration, that's going to get eliminated from the process, isn't it?
Yes, well, what I wanted to report though, that about 3.2 million of that is Three Waters. So it's not all Three Waters.
3.2 out of how much?
4.7. About $500,000 was as a result of the recent collective negotiations, where we agreed to a equivalent to 5.5% movement for staff at the time. And you'll remember at the time, CPI and all that was 6.9, nearly 7%, and a lot of councils had been settling at much higher than what we settled on. But we remember we budgeted only 2.5% through the LTP process. So there's a differential around what was negotiated. So that's worth about $500,000 above what we budgeted. So that contributes to that 4.7. There's some minor good news. We do still have some Three Waters better off support funding that we haven't yet fully applied for. Did you figure out what the figure was that we can go for, George?
It's around the 200K.
Yeah, so we still, which it won't be in last year, it'll be in this new year, but we've still got some of that, but it's minor compared to the total cost in that sense. So there is further explanation, Your Worship, of getting why closer to the
So Councillor McTominay followed by Herbert.
Yeah, I would still like to see the other operating expenditure broken down, or the three waters elements taken out of that. I mean, the other operating expenditures, the highest expenditure item on the list. For most businesses, would not be the case. So it would be good to see that in the next year, that those three waters at least come out of that. And the other thing too, just where depreciation and amortisation sits, should it actually come out below the surplus for the year? Because they're actually debt repayments, and I'm assuming depreciation collected from rates. So it's actually a positive on the balance sheet.
Through you, Your Worship, the depreciation that's in here is what we have to put in the annual report. We journal it each month based on reval from last year. The depreciation we fund from rates goes into our reserves.
It's not actually collected.
So it's not that depreciation is not actually cash. The depreciation we fund through rates goes into our reserves, and if we need, we transfer it out to cover capital.
Yeah.
So
the debt repayments, which are going to start rising dramatically too, should they actually be not included in the total expenditure, but be below that?
the debt repayments aren't in there. The interest is in there.
We've got finance costs and amortisation.
We have finance costs. That is the interest on our borrowing.
Yeah.
And that has to be there.
So what are you referring to as amortisation at 16?
Through your worship, that is depreciation on software as a service, pretty much. You can't call it depreciation. Like on our computer systems, it's got to be called amortisation. It's just an accounting jargon.
Because usually it's principal we pay.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not. I can take that word out, actually.
We do have principal repayment on the 7.5 million.
Correct,
So
but that's in our balance sheet, and our the balance of our debt goes up and down as we borrow and repay and borrow and repay.
Yeah, because we are actually going to be paying off quite a bit of debt in the next few years too, aren't we? As we borrow, and then we get into these 30-year loans.
But we're not paying it off.
We repay it, and then we borrow it.
Yeah.
Borrow it.
So we're not paying it off.
Yeah, but
we're paying it off.
In the actual expenditure of the year, it will be quite a sum. We'll be borrowing it back out one side, but yeah. What I'm meaning is a lot of the income collected for rates will actually be paying off principal.
The only principal we're paying off is the 7.5 million on Homer, and everything else we just roll.
No, the whole lot. If we're borrowing that for in the next few, in that long-term plan, if you look at, say, the Greenfield water scheme, there's substantial amounts of principal actually getting repaid.
Correct. We budget to repay every single amount of debt that we have. We budget to do that, but then we're also budgeting to borrow for other things. So that'll be why our debt is going up. We are repaying it, but we're reborrowing, reborrowing.
Leading up to the LTP, we'd had that year or two that because we thought we were losing the assets, that we weren't paying principal on some of the three waters things. But that changed after this in this LTP, and we're into year one now of that. So we're back to we're back to paying principal.
So it just might have to be categorised in the future. Yeah.
Councillor Herbert? No? Any further questions, Tim? Any discussion? The recommendation back there, if there's no further discussion. Someone? Councillor Ludeman, thank you for moving. Seconder, please. Councillor Volwheeler. All those in favour? Aye. Those against. We're all deep in thought, team, I'm sure. So page 138, back to Trace / Greg, is it?
Thank you, Worship, everyone. He's filling in for Trey. He's up at course in Wellington. So he did just ask me to point out a few things about this report, so I'll just quickly go through those. Because it's the first month of the year, there's no trend lines yet, so those will reappear next time. Let's compare. Regulatory now has 5 KPIs compared to 2 last year, and 2 are now split between the 2 regulatory teams. So one being Malcolm's team for the Building and Regulatory Services Department, and the other being Livy's, the planning team. The economic development KPI has changed and can now be measured monthly. No progress this month, however. Page 5, the actual columns should say actual 2025 rather than 2024, so we'll correct that for next time. And the audit of the 2024 KPIs hasn't started yet, but should be finished by the next meeting as we go into the audit process. So, yeah, have you taken any questions or discussion?
Thank you, Greg. Questions for Greg, please. First month, so no trends coming through. There are no questions. You're off the hook, Greg. Discussions taken. No discussion. Right up. Recommendation this time.
Happy to move.
Moved Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Over to page 149, protozoa and bacteria, and that's Karen, Linda. Linda's here. Welcome, Linda. I think the pages are getting greener, aren't they? Slightly. Floor's yours.
Your Worship, I've got the report to present, just that you know Daniel Pickups on leave, and I've got Greta Campbell, who's our Senior Compliance Engineer, here with me to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Linda or Greta, please, okay. It's a pedantic one on page 150, the first of the red boxes. We were compliant 30 out of 30 days, but we were still not compliant. Is that a typo or?
One of them should be proto, and facto.
Oh, the headings are incorrect.
Now just see there in the first box, it's got, we were compliant 30 out of 30. Well, if we're compliant 30 out of 30, we wouldn't have failed. Sorry, I'm being pedantic.
No, but it says here letters as well.
Might have had issues with pH and things along those lines, which might not be directly related to the full facto compliance, but it would have still given us a technical non-compliance. So there might have been hours or days where we might have had out of spec moments, but sometimes that's just due to the plant not carrying over the result if it's doing a backwash or something like that. So it might have been a technical non-compliance, is what I'm thinking.
Questions taken, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Linda, Mile Flat, their old chestnut that's been on the board water notice for about 19 months. I'm trying to break this down to issues to solve because this seems to be getting rolled down the street. The UVT monitor unit, whatever it is, in July last year, a new one was installed there. And on the compliance report, the one later today, it says the treatment plant struggles to achieve required UV dose and UVT required to provide assurance that protozoa in the water has been adequately disinfected by the UV treatment process. This one says the UV now controls the plant, which should improve things. Is UV a problem? Why is it still on there? We put a thing in 12 months ago, 13 months ago. I'm struggling to try and solve the UV problem because the committee, the community is tired of it.
Understood, and the UV is fully operational. It's been fully commissioned from the end of February this year, but we're still struggling to get consistently compliant results. And so we're looking at what else we need to do to improve the plant performance.
The committee's we've spent millions of dollars on this. We've spent thousands of dollars on consultants, and we keep being told to spend more money, and it doesn't actually transpire into green boxes. So there's a fair old bit of frustration out there. I don't think people want to spend any more money. We just want to figure out how this is going to comply. How the UV's it's like 13 months, and we're still. I'm just want an answer. Is how we can
certainly improve things. And yesterday, when I was talking to Corey, he told me that the plant had been compliant for 18 days. I think it was last month, but the other 12 days it's non-compliant, and we don't want to be putting the boil water notice off and on, because that will cause even more frustration.
If we drill down a bit, Linda, like some firm said, we'll supply you this UV plant, this is going to work in Tapanui and it's going to solve the problem. And it hasn't solved the problem. Are we able to go back to them and say, well, we employed you, we gave you the money to solve the problem, it's your problem, fix it? Well, you know, like, if I said I was going to sell you a car and you're going to be able to drive to Dunedin in it, you found you could only go to Waihola, you're going to be on the blower and want a new car off me. That's simplistically what it's.
That's an ongoing piece of work. It's not that, Your Worship, not Tapanui. So the plant was designed for the previous drinking water standards, not the current drinking water standards. We still hold retentions from that project, and until we can achieve compliance with the additional money we've spent, we won't be paying that out, and we are working with that supplier to try and see what else we need to do.
Your Worship and Councillor, the Moa flat is discussed, and was only discussed as recently as this week or late last week, because we still meet 3 days a week in the mornings on these matters. And Moa flat was discussed because we were at one point we were almost there, and that. So it was within our grasp to be able to actually succeed. And these things have been put in, and we're still not meeting the standards fully. So the question we asked ourselves is, you know, we've said to the team, we need to get a plan or a solution of what is going to do it. Because the technical people, the experts will say the UV was going to do it, the reservoir was going to do it, and that when you're almost there, and you were still not fully achieving. So, you know, if you have a magic wand and say this is what's going to fix it, then we'll fix it. But it isn't from lack of technical solutions being looked at, and as you say, the amount of investment, but we still haven't achieved it. You know, the experts are the experts that are still trying to give us the solution to get the compliance.
I was also wondering, just from a governance perspective, when you're sitting at home on late at night, a lot of these is be solved when Greenfield comes through, be solved when Waihola gets there. Are we able to split them apart so that we're then thinking, right, these ones here are all going to be solved when Greenfield gets turned on or what have you, so that we're looking at the red boxes of the unsolved or the unsolvable or whatever, so that okay, yes, there's a red box, we get that, but it's Greenfield, we've done it. The answer's there, we're just waiting for it to come on through. Could we change that so that the problem ones are right, that one, and we can start tracking the likes of Moa Flat for, there isn't a Greenfield solution that I can see.
Worship, it's a simple equation at the moment. We've got Moa Flat and North Bruce, the two schemes that we're focusing on. All of the other plants will be solved when Greenfield goes.
Yep, I was just wondering we could split that up in a minute. Flurry of hands. Councillor Graham, followed by Fun.
Yeah, through you. You said before the Moa Flat plant results were compliant to what the water standards were, or designed to that. So if you really look at it, none of our plants, eventually all our plants are going to be non-compliant if they keep raising the standard or changing the bar. So
as we built the treatment plant, the water standards changed.
Yeah. So because you don't know what you don't know, you're never going to win.
The frustration I had is that we're coming up with a plan now to solve this problem. I would have thought there would have been a plan already, and I sit here cynically saying if this was Balclutha or Milton, I don't think it would take this long.
In Your Worship, we should obviously disagree with that, because we would be saying that's not how we approach it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charles or Linda. My understanding is, as you see, the things that have been put in place, the reservoir and the UVT, were what had been identified to get us towards achievement, if not achieving. And our problem is, now that they're in, we're now saying the same thing. We're saying, well, that's what we had planned. There isn't another investment plan of something else. But what's the solution to get completion of the compliance? That's our next step, because we haven't achieved compliance with those two investments yet. We need to say, will we achieve compliance with those two investments? Is it another reason why that's not the case? Or is there further things we have to put in place to achieve it? That's the bit of the plan that I haven't seen yet and hasn't been discussed. We've talked about needing that type of plan. But I can assure you that we want mower flat off the list, just like we want more Spruce off the list.
And through you, Your Worship, there was some additional work that was approved through the LTP in terms of changing the dosing and some other bits and pieces, which we may need to get through summer period as well. So we've also asked the teams to make a call on that, the additional clarifier, so we can bring back that plan to the committee as well. So I think certainly before the next standing committees, I would be expecting our operations team to be coming back and saying, here's the reasons we're non-compliant and this is what we're proposing to do about it. Because I share those frustrations, Councillor Herbert, and we definitely want to come back and keep the committee informed about what we're doing and what we're planning and the timelines on that.
And through you, Your Worship, the Moa Flat Reservoir is being commissioned, so we haven't seen the impact of that yet either.
It's being filled slowly at the moment, come on, end of October, from what I can.
It's a slow job. It's a big tank.
Councillor Finch.
So going back to your question, is there any comeback on those experts that have said this will help, this will fix it, that will, and when it hasn't? Have we got any comeback on that?
Through Your Worship, other than holding back retentions, but it's such a fine science because the water changes and you haven't got the same thing coming in every day. So you're literally having to work through what are the things that we can influence and see what the impact is of that change of dosing or whatever it is that we're trying to do to achieve compliance.
So is that weather related, that's changing daily?
Not always weather, ground conditions, all sorts of
It
things.
comes out of a pond.
Shouldn't be
It's
changed.
the same every day. It comes out of a reservoir. Sorry.
It comes out of a holding.
It comes out of a reservoir that's about 120,000 cubics, about 60 days supply. The water doesn't change from day to day, sorry.
Yes, it shouldn't change. That's like that should.
You don't get a guarantee from an equipment supplier. The equipment supplier will say, here's your UV unit, this is the dose it will achieve, but unless that's getting water that meets the criteria for that to meet the standards, it doesn't matter what you've done in your UV for your UV system, if there's an issue with the filter or with whatever's happening up front of the plant, you still cannot achieve full compliance. So you can't hold that to the UV supplier. The rest of the way that system is working needs to be looked at to make sure the plant can consistently produce water that will be of a suitable quality for that UV system to do its job.
Okay, thank you.
Righto team, I think we can sense there's a fair bit of pressure coming in from the communities and so be it. Team, got a recommendation there on page 149. Councillor Ludeman is on fire again. Get round and wake everyone up.
Yeah, come on then.
Thanks, Ken. Seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Over to page 157. Lindis, it's still yours. There you Greta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just take the report as read and happy to take questions. I will draw your attention to the page 162, where we've outlined the cost for Phoenix Dam diversion and the work we've had to do to maintain a secure supply for Lawrence until Greenfields is delivered.
Questions for Councillor Herbert?
The first box on 158 there, it says we're going to have a 12-month budget of 40 million there, but the actual was zero. Capital funding, the third line down.
Capital funding.
Yeah, so we budgeted.
Agree?
Sorry?
Agreed.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon, thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, that is because of the timing of the report. That's an annual report adjustment when we raise our loans, transfer our reserves.
So it looks worse than it is.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
There's no offset.
No, there's no offset for that yet. There hasn't, but there won't be all year until the annual report. But it's just to show in the budget that we said we were going to do $41,000 worth of capital expenditure, and we had funding in of 40 million, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we did 31.8.
Yes.
Councillor Finch.
On page 159 and the pie chart there, the repairs urban and rural seem extremely high. Do you think that's going to drop down over time?
I guess that if we keep our renewals program current and as we react to repairs and identify, sections of pipe that need updating, so we don't get multiple leaks.
Breaks, yeah, because there seems to be quite a few multiple breaks going on over a few schemes.
Linda, sorry, Bruce. Sorry, Councillor Wheeler.
Thanks, Your Worship, just through you. Just looking at, again, that pie chart and the reticulation contract costs, what overheads is this reasonably substantial part of that? And what does that overheads cover?
So through you, Your Worship, that is their on-site overheads, so the cost for them running, because we've got 3 contractors, so you're paying for 3 lots of overheads on their depot and their yards and things, and management staff as well. So off-site and on-site overheads.
So that's charged separately. That's a sort of fixed cost anyway.
Yes.
They weren't to do any work for us, but that's still a fixed cost.
Correct. And under the new contract, there is the back-to-back agreements that have been signed now by the subbies with the main contractor. We'll see some of that overhead reduce because there's less for the other the subbies to do. It'll be done by the lead contractor.
And one further question, just on page 160, just water meter income, so, budget 116, actual is 29,000 so far. Is that just basically a cash situation?
Through you, we have struggled with water meter income just to understand records that have been maintained. We did do some billing this month, so it'll be flowing into the next financial year, or this current financial year, and won't reflect here.
But it was for the previous period, wasn't it?
Yes, for the
Through
previous
you, Your
period.
Worship, that is actually it.
It was for full 12 months.
For 29?
That's part of what was in there, but it will actually go back. We will put it back.
Yes. Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry, Linda, we will put it back. It was just done really recently though, because we've had quite a few issues with locating things and reading things in previous readings, and but yeah, so we've
had a bit of a clean-up.
So just, was that the reading done by the previous contractor?
Some were, haven't been done for quite some time. Some were done by council staff, but that we had some issues. We used to import it into our system, but then when meters clocked over, things would drop out. So we've gone back to actually doing it manually, just sending a manual invoice, getting it, calculating it ourselves, taking off the 366 cubes and getting an invoice sent out. I think we've recently just built, I think it was $70,000.
That's mainly Sterling.
No, there was Belclutha. It was all commercial, the stuff we did. It was no residential. It was Milton, Techno, Lawrence, Kai, just the odd property in some of the places, but.
Sterling customers are typically quite aware of their water usage, and not many of them get a bill.
So,
this should improve going forward now.
That's the intention. It has to.
So either Linda or Sharon, page 162, green box. If we pretended that Phoenix Dam never happened and the Greenfield flowed in and it was all good and fine, there's a figure there of 532,000 But it is said that there will be some recovery of material. Just for posterity, is it fair to say that we recover a few incidentals, but pretty much the Phoenix Dam saga cost us $500,000.
Yeah. Can I ask just a further question on that, please, Your Worship? Would it be appropriate or inappropriate to bill the ORC $532,000 for the decommissioning costs of the Phoenix Dam?
Through you, Your Worship. I guess it's one of those things that at the end of the day that the dam owner owns the dam. They were instructed by ORC to take some action to dewater and then a further instruction to decommission. So from those decisions that were made by ORC on the dam owner, we had to secure the supply.
I know, I'm just being a bit cheeky, but I'm not.
There is debate about who owns the dam.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that question. Has it been worked out yet who does actually own it legally?
It's always just good to put information on the back. You never know when the conversation could turn, and you need to remember that. So $500,000 will be fine. Well, it's not fine. It'll be fine. We've got recommendations back there somewhere, team. Are we ready to head to there?
Happy to move.
Councillor Finch has moved. Councillor Phelps, I beg your pardon. Oh, Feltsy moved, so I just shut it, but I'll go to Councillor Ludeman now that I realise we can't. So Councillor Finch, Councillor Ludeman, all those in favour? Those against, thank you. Sharon, back to you.
Thank you, Your
Thank you,
Worship.
Linda.
Yet again, there have been no changes to this report, and I'll just take it as read, but we will be getting a new one at the end of this audit, so this will be updated.
Righto, pretty straightforward, I think. Has anyone got questions?
Move again.
So we're just moving. Councillor Finch, seconded by, and let Councillor Ludeman do it. Councillor Herbert. Finch and Herbert. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Greg, your moment on the sun, the Treasury Management Report.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just go through a couple of main points on this. So we had 531k unrealised gain in the month of July, 35k portfolio fund management fees deducted. So that's resulted in year-to-date cumulative return so far of 1.06%. There's been no change to the borrowings since last time, so that still sits at 180 million in July. I just want to acknowledge the requests we had last time regarding interest rate trends. So we've had some information back from the LGFA. It just came in last week, so it was after the cut-off agenda. Yes, it's just we need to look into it a bit more, make sure it's a bit more understandable, refine it a bit to make it easy to interpret. So we should hopefully put something there next time. So, yeah.
Questions for Greg?
Mine's a pretty simple one, Greg. So the top right-hand side of the dashboard, we're talking about increasing the debt by 47 million this financial year.
That's the year-end budgeted balance. That's right. So
I'm reading it right.
Yes, we're currently at 118.8.
Yeah, we're projecting 165.
Year-end budget is 165. That's right.
Right. Further questions, too? If not, discussion. If there's no discussion or someone willing to look back to page 1685. The only thing I thought was when I went through, sorry to be pedantic once again, but just to keep, we've got basically roll-ins, roll-outs, but it doesn't show how much each month. To see, which meant an increase of 4.82 million or something on that one, because it's worth having it that because that shows, but it's almost irrelevant when you just roll it. It's the difference. It's how much it's growing by that pretty much is what I'm interested in.
You should also be very much interested in what the interest rate
I know.
each time. This was only May 30th. Sharon or Greg, what's the interest rates looking like? We're in terms of the rollovers and that for June, July, August. What do we know? Has it continued to trend down as we would expect?
Through you, Your Worship, I was speaking with Miles on like 2 days ago, and he said it has continued to trend down, and he's going to be in touch before the end of this month, and so that we can take advantage of some swaps that are at higher rates, because they're ones where we get paid. So yes, they are still trending down, but.
Can I also get a clarification, because in speeches last week it was said how we will be able to access cheap money from LGFA. The money that's 500% and the money that's cheap, it's no cheaper than this, it is just this, isn't it? We're already accessing LGFA's cheap money. It's not like this moving forward, what was offered from the government as, LGFA is now able to do it at an even cheaper discount rate. It is just LGFA's rate. They keep on referring to it as you will have access to cheaper money. No, we won't, because we've got access to LGFA's rate anyway. Do you know if there's some sweet deal that they're giving LGFA?
No, Your Worship. The determinant of rate is really the credit rating.
Yeah.
And we haven't got the highest credit rating or the best credit rating, but we haven't got a credit rating, so we're getting cheaper rates from LGFA than we had when we were non-rated. But there aren't other cheaper rates from LGFA other than improving the credit rate.
So the next step was the council's credit rating at worst is A+, and yet the new structures that they're saying we will access this cheaper money from is a CCO, which at best is a B+. So therefore the money that we're accessing from LGFA is actually going to be more expensive than the money we're accessing from LGFA now. Is that an argument that's...
would depend
because it's a B+ CCO, it's a CCO structure that they're having. So consequently, there was a lot of discussion around it. Is the money, because they keep saying the fancy words, but if LGFA's money for a council is cheaper than a CCO and they're forcing the CCO, it's actually a more expensive LGFA rate. Are we able to find out, rather than the words, the actual details? Cheers. What do we do? Are we going to move in a seconder? Did we get that far? No? Let's do it. Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Herbert. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. Quite a few pages to go over this. We've got Skulk's report on cyber security, is it? We've got the team coming up. Takes 2 men to replace Skulk. I don't think so, guys. You'll be doing a good job.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Just this afternoon.
It is.
Yes, my first council meeting. Wow. Anyway, so yes, I've taken over from Skulk at the moment, acting CIO, and I thought I would just give a brief introduction on what we're discussing today. And it's primarily around CrowdStrike and the incident on the 19th of July this year, when we had the big global outage across the world. From our end, I decided this was not due to a mistake we made. It was a global outage. So we use CrowdStrike. It's a world-leader company that deals with cybersecurity, and they protect your network against cyber threats and attacks. Now, these guys are the best in the world, and yes, they made a mistake. They did acknowledge it, and they fixed it. So from our side, of course, it happened on a Friday evening, just before the weekend. So yes, your Friday evening didn't go as planned, but we acted quickly. And our systems were basically up and running within 4 hours. There's companies out there that were out for days.
Wow.
Now, there's nothing that puts you out of your comfort zone when something like this happens. From our side, we didn't lose any systems. We didn't lose any data. And we worked together with our Beverage, our company that hosts all our servers. Pro South and our internal staff. We worked well together and we tested a DR plan. So that's why I said it put us out of our comfort zone and actually had to do a disaster recovery in real life. And we managed to get everything up and running in 4 hours. We won't bore you with all the technical details, but I think AJ would be able to elaborate a bit more on the technical side. But that is all from my side, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Questions, Dave?
Congratulations and well done.
Thank you.
If that's all the questions?
No, I think it should be noted that I whizzed down to my office in 3 hours. I don't know whether that was what saved the day or not. Probably there's a high likelihood that it did, because if there's ever going to be a stuff up, I'm pretty sure it'll be out of my office that it'll be happening. Well done, team. We just dodge bullets, I suppose. You know, these clowns that are creating the problems, you never know what they've got lined up next. So, and that's would you still say that, what is it, Cyber, are they still the world's #1 after this has happened?
Yes.
They're still the world's #1.
Yeah, and we have no plan of, as was in the report, we have no plan on moving from CrowdStrike either.
There's no better guys out there to replace this kind of function internally. You would need at least a team of 10 people dedicated just to cybersecurity. So you can imagine your cost when it gets to employing 10 specialized technicians to work on this day by day. Your cost will be way more excessive than using CrowdStrike. We've got a good team backing us up.
Super gigs.
Crazy world we live in.
Yep.
Okay, team, if there's no further questions, discussion, recommendation.
Happy to move.
We've got a councillor Finch, Ludeman seconding. All those in favour? Those against. Thank you. Right. What I see from the reasons going to non-public, if no one's got any questions, I don't really see why we need to go into non-public.
Agree.
So has anyone got questions to tip the balance, or am I just going to roll it over and we take it as an open agenda item? Going. Okay, we move over, please, and all we're doing is moving the risk and assurance minutes from the 18th of July as a true and correct record. Someone prepared to move that?
I moved, Your Worship.
Councillor Payne's moved, Councillor Herbert seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? It brings the meeting to a close.